There is a version of Denise Richards' life that reads as a straightforward Hollywood rise and fall. The beautiful girl from Illinois, who made it to the biggest stages the industry had, and then found snorts herself, caught in circumstances that would have broken most people. But the full version is more complicated than that, and considerably more human. It is a story about a woman who spent decades absorbing other people's chaos, shielding her children from it, and trying to build something stable in the middle of a life that kept delivering the opposite. She was born on February 17, 1971, in Downers Grove, Illinois. Her father worked in the phone business. Her mother passed away from kidney failure in 2007, and that loss would mark her in ways that surfaced publicly across several seasons of reality television years later. She started modeling as a teenager, moved to Los Angeles, and began getting small television roles in her early 20s. The kinds of parts that do not get you noticed, but teach you how to work. What got her noticed was Starship Troopers in 1997, followed by Wild Things in 1998. Wild Things, an erotic thriller with a twist-heavy plot and a scene that became one of the most discussed moments of its year, made Denise Richards a household name overnight. She was 26 years old. She played the role with a confidence that read as genuine rather than performed, and the film gave her something that most actors spend years trying to manufacture: an instant, indelible identity. Audiences knew who she was. The Bond franchise confirmed it. In 1999, she appeared in The World Is Not Enough as Dr. Christmas Jones, a nuclear physicist. The casting was not without criticism. Some felt the character's scientific expertise did not quite match what was on screen. But Denise addressed this directly and honestly over the years, noting that Bond girls are supposed to be slightly outrageous, and that audiences who expected otherwise were perhaps missing the point of the franchise. She was nominated for a Blockbuster Entertainment Award for the performance, and spent much of the following year near the top of every major publication's list of the most visible women in Hollywood. In 2001, she guest-starred on Friends. She appeared in magazine covers that would have required a decade of careful positioning for most actresses her age. And then she met Charlie Sheen. They met on the set of Good Advice in 2000 and began dating in 2001. By December of that year, they were engaged, and they married on June 15, 2002. What Denise has said about the early period of the relationship is consistent across multiple interviews. "I knew what his past was like, and I'm one thing about myself, and how I was raised, and how my parents are. I don't pass judgment. I'm not, at least for the most part, I like to think of myself as I'm not a judgmental person, so I wasn't judging him for his past. The person that I met was who I met at that moment. She had been warned by people around her not to get involved. When we fell in love, he had been sober for 3 years. He was, getting his life back together. He'd just gotten a job on Spin City, and I really admired his strength and courage for overcoming addiction and being so humble about it, and that's what attracted me to him. So, the Charlie that some of you have seen over the last 6 months is not the person that I met and married. Their first daughter, Sammy, was born in 2004. In March 2005, while 6 months pregnant with their second daughter, Lola, Denise filed for divorce. What she alleged in those initial filings was not minor domestic difficulty. She described drug and alcohol abuse, threats of violence, and conduct she found deeply disturbing. The divorce itself was ugly in the specific way that divorces become ugly when one party is Charlie Sheen. There was a custody battle. There was a public restraining order. There was a period in which Sheen attempted to block their daughters from appearing with their mother on her reality show. The divorce was not finalized until November 2006, which meant that while Denise was pregnant, giving birth, becoming a mother of 2, and rebuilding her professional identity, she was also actively litigating the end of her marriage. She was in her mid-30s and essentially managing multiple full-time crises simultaneously. What happened to her career during this period is worth examining closely, because it is not simply that the roles dried up. It is that the public narrative around her shifted in a way that made certain kinds of casting difficult. She was no longer primarily the Bond girl or the Wild Things actress. She was increasingly described in relation to Charlie Sheen as the woman who had left him, who was in a custody dispute with him, who was fighting publicly with one of the most prominent men in Hollywood. Tabloid culture in the mid-2000s was particularly unsparing toward women in those situations, and Denise absorbed years of coverage that centered her identity on her ex-husband's behavior rather than her own career. She made an attempt to address this directly in 2008 with a reality show called Denise Richards. It's Complicated, which ran on E! For 2 seasons. The show gave her a platform to present her life on her own terms, her daughters, her home, her daily reality as a single mother navigating the aftermath of a very public marriage. It was not a hit that transformed her back into a film star, but it demonstrated something important. She was willing to be seen as a headline, and she was not hiding from the chaos that had defined her recent years. In 2011, she adopted a third daughter, Eloise, as a single mother. This was not a public relations gesture or a planned narrative moment. Eloise had been born a month earlier, and Denise decided to adopt her. She was raising 2 daughters, whose father was Charlie Sheen in his most chaotic years. The period of the public breakdown, the firing from 2.5 Men, the interviews, the phrases that became cultural shorthand for very specific kind of unraveling. Denise shielded Sammy and Lola from that as much as she could. She said in 2025 on her Bravo show that her daughters had grown up largely unaware of the most extreme episodes of their father's public behavior. She had not told them. She made the decision to protect them from information they did not need to carry. She also, during this stretch, took in Charlie's twin sons with his next wife, Brooke Muller, when Muller was in a difficult period and needed support. This is a detail that tends to get lost in the broader narrative of Denise Richards' life. She was raising her own 3 daughters, managing the professional and legal fallout of her divorce, and simultaneously providing stability for 2 more children who were not hers. Children who belonged to the man she had divorced, and his next wife. There was no cameras rolling for most of it. It was simply something she did. In 2018, she married Aaron Pfeifers. The relationship had moved quickly. They met at his wellness practice in Malibu in 2017, got engaged in September 2018, and married 2 days later in a barefoot ceremony on the beach that was filmed for Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which she was joining as a full-time cast member for Season 9. The marriage was presented, both on the show and in interviews, as the partnership she had been building toward, someone spiritually aligned with her, calm where she was expressive, steady where she needed steadiness. Her 2 seasons on RHOBH told a different story. She arrived as an exciting casting choice, a genuine film star on a franchise that had always positioned itself as aspirational. And Season 9 gave her room to be charming and surprisingly funny, more self-aware about her own image than audiences had anticipated. She talked about her marriage with warmth. She navigated the social dynamics of the cast with more agility than the show's veteran members initially expected. Season 10 was a different experience entirely. Brandi Glanville, a former cast member brought back in a limited capacity, made public allegations about a physical encounter between herself and Denise during the filming period of Season 9. The details of what Brandi described and what Denise denied became the central storyline of the season. Denise maintained throughout, on the show, in the press, in direct conversations with her cast members, that what Brandi was claiming had not happened. Her castmates, for reasons that varied by individual, largely sided with Brandi's account. What unfolded over the course of Season 10 was one of the more difficult, sustained on-camera experiences the RHOBH franchise had produced. Denise was confronted repeatedly in group settings and one-on-one conversations about allegations she denied. She stopped filming partway through the season. She and her representatives said the contract negotiations for Season 11 could not be resolved, and she did not return as a full-time cast member. Andy Cohen confirmed that the show could not agree on a deal. Reports from people close to the situation suggested Denise had wanted to come back, but could not reach an agreement on terms. She returned briefly in season 13 for 6 episodes, primarily to address unresolved business with Erika Jayne stemming from events during the Brandi Glanville season. The return was handled on her own terms, with more clarity and less defensiveness than her exit had allowed. She and Erika, who had been adversarial during season 10, eventually found a warmer footing in the period between her RHOBH departure and her return to Bravo with her own show. Denise's home life was changing in ways that were not public knowledge. She later disclosed, during season 15 of RHOBH, and in her own Bravo series, that the difficulties in her marriage to Aaron Fipers had not begun near the end of the relationship. They had begun in January 2022, when an altercation left her with a black eye she photographed and kept. She said, "He slammed me against a concrete wall in a subsequent incident." In April 2025, while she was in a Chicago hotel, she alleged that he squeezed her head with both hands, with a force that felt, in her words, like her skull was being crushed. She had a facelift scheduled. She told the court and her castmates that she had waited to file because she wanted to get through the surgery first. The final incident came on July 4, 2025. Fibers filed for divorce on July 7th. 11 days later, Denise filed for a temporary order against him detailing the pattern of alleged abuse that had been occurring across the marriage. In October 2025, she testified in court and described the incidents in detail. She told the judge that Aaron had given her at least 3 concussions. "He's almost killed me so many damn times," she said from the stand. On November 7, 2025, a Los Angeles Superior Court judge granted Denise Richards a permanent 5-year restraining order against Aaron Fibers. The order runs until November 7, 2030. It requires him to stay 100 yards away from her home, and her workplace. It prohibits him from contacting her, possessing firearms, or sharing private photographs or medical footage of her. The judge also ordered Fibers to return a laptop he had allegedly taken and to delete recordings of Denise's surgeries from all his devices. Fibers denied every allegation, both publicly and in court. "It's super tough. I'm not even trying to make eye contact, man. Seriously, it's tough to hear stories that aren't true, and you just gotta sit there and I hope we can make peace and clear my name from these bogus allegations." He claimed that the black eye incident happened when she fell into a pole and that she bruised easily due to her own physical constitution. He subsequently filed for spousal support, noting he had closed his business in late 2024 and had no stable income. He claimed that he held intellectual property rights to photographs used on her OnlyFans account, which he said he had helped build. His parents launched a public fundraising page after he was evicted from the home he had shared with Denise, with his mother describing her son as a man who had been destroyed by false allegations, Hollywood power, and a system determined to silence him. The fundraising page was later deleted. Denise also navigated, during this same period, the Bravo reality show that had been built around her family. Denise Richards and Her Wild Things premiered in early 2025 and featured her life with Sammy, Lola, and Eloise. The show was canceled after 1 season. The cancellation was announced around the same time as the public news of the divorce. The position Denise Richards occupies in 2026 is one that few people in her industry would willingly describe as enviable. She is in the middle of a contentious divorce. Very, very, very difficult time. It's so hard to go through divorce. Many of you have gone through that. This isn't my first one, it's my second one. And I never thought I'd get divorced again. This is why I always say never. We're just our family, and it is under extraordinary circumstances sometimes. Things are up and down, up and down, up and down, and he and I know that, and it is what it is. Fighting for legal protection from a man she was photographed with at a charity event in May 2025, 3 months before the restraining order. She is rebuilding her professional identity through OnlyFans, which she has described without apology as a platform that has brought her more acting offers than traditional Hollywood had in years. Her daughter Sammy does the same, and the two of them have spoken publicly about the double standard that evaluates them differently despite making the same choice. Lola, her middle daughter, walks an entirely different path: religious, private, country music, and horses. What Denise Richards' full story reveals across all of these chapters is not someone who made catastrophic choices and paid for them. It is someone who spent roughly 30 years being connected, primarily in the public's mind, to the damage caused by other people. A husband who could not sustain his sobriety, an industry that repositioned her as a tabloid figure rather than a working actress, a cast of women who chose to believe a version of events she denied, and a second husband who she says spent years frightening her inside a marriage she finally had the capacity to leave. She has said she does not regret her marriage to Charlie Sheen because it gave her Sammy and Lola. She has said, through her attorney, that she showed remarkable courage in choosing to pursue legal protection rather than stay quiet. She has said, on camera and in interviews, that she is still trying to be the person her daughters need her to be. The Bond girl who had everything in 1999 is 54 years old in 2026 and sitting in a courtroom describing the times she believed she might not survive. That is the distance between the beginning and where she currently stands. And the distance is not the result of her own undoing. It is, more than anything else, the result of what it costs a woman to absorb that much across that many years and still be standing. From the most downloaded name on the internet in 1999 to a Los Angeles courtroom in 2025 testifying about concussions and fear for her life. A Bond girl, a single mother of 3, a woman who shielded her children from chaos she never created. The full story of Denise Richards. Subscribe for more.